This week we begin the church's new year with the season of Advent. Advent is the 4-week season of preparation and hopeful anticipation that Christians are observing around the world in anticipation and celebration of Christmas, Jesus' birth. And so we will obviously, like many around us, we will be preparing ourselves, our homes, our churches, our own personal lives to celebrate Christmas. And we invite you to come on December 24th to celebrate the birth of Jesus here in worship at 7 o'clock. But Advent is also more than just the celebration of Jesus' birth at Christmas. Advent is a season of reflection and preparation as we think about, with hopeful anticipation, what God's preferred future is for all of humankind and really for all of creation. We believe that the Bible has a vision for this future, for God's future. And it is a future that we might describe as divine or holy or God's shalom, a time of harmony and peace, of reconciliation of relationships, of restoration of things that are broken. In the Bible, in the Hebrew Bible, the first 5 books of the Hebrew Bible are called the Torah, and one of those books is Leviticus. And in Leviticus 25, it talks about this pending season of shalom, of restored economic dignity and restoration of justice so that all people have what is needed and nobody in their midst is suffering from poverty, but all have what they need. That time that's described in Leviticus 25 is called the time of Jubilee. And it was related to the Sabbath law. You know, Sabbath is based on the 7-day week of creation, and the 7th day is the day that God rested, and it's a day then when God's people are also commanded to rest from our labors, to rest in the promises of a loving and compassionate and merciful God. Well, the Hebrew people, the Jewish people, also believe that not only on every 7 days one ought to rest, but every 7 years the land must rest as well. And so in their agrarian economy, in their agricultural economy, they allowed the land to rest after 7 years so that the soil would be restored, so that it can be fruitful and productive in another season again. And so every 7 times 7 years, or after the 49th year, the 50th year, the people of Israel were called to a season, a year of Jubilee. This was a year in which there would be restored economic dignity and justice, where the poor would be, their debts would be forgiven. All debts would be forgiven. Those who were displaced from their land would be allowed to return to their land. And all that was somehow lost would be returned, including lost relationships. Now, it may be that actually the gift and hope of Jubilee and of God's shalom could never really fully be enacted. It's always been something anticipatory, something we look toward and hope for in practice. But it may be that over the next year, as we enter into the church's year in which we will mostly listen to the Gospel of Luke, that it would be good for us to begin to contemplate, to reflect on, to think about how might the church be invited to enact God's Jubilee, to enact this time of restoration and reconciliation and healing and justice for all, a time of economic dignity and of lifting up the poor, and assuring that all people receive God's generosity, and all people can be blessed with God's provision and protection. So as we begin the Advent season, in this new church's year, I invite you to take an Advent calendar this week and an Advent devotional as ways of sort of centering and focusing your spirit, your mind, your heart in this season of Advent and to begin to think about what would it mean for the church to begin a new year in anticipation and hope for what God intends to be the future of all of God's creation, a future that is good, a future that is filled with peace and light and life and joy. We know that during this season there are many who are experiencing sorrow. And so the color of hope is blue, which may also remind you of grief or sorrow. And we are reminded, we are mindful this season that for everybody, this is not a season of joy. And so much more than, how much more than do we think about this idea of Jubilee, of a time when everyone will be able to celebrate with joy, when there will be no more sorrow or any more mourning, but all will be restored and there will be shalom, peace, and joy for everyone. One of the ways that we might think about enacting Jubilee in the next year is by partnering with Church World Service to welcome refugees from Afghanistan over the course of the next many months. If you're interested in participating with that, with us in refugee resettlement, please check out our Facebook page, Zion Akron, or our website to learn more about how we are going to be welcoming newcomers to our country and our community and helping them to experience a little bit of Jubilee, a little bit of God's healing, restorative presence, God's peace, God's justice, God's protection and provision that is meant for all of God's people. So happy Advent to you. I hope that you will join us in the many ways we are gathering during the season. We'll be here every Sunday morning at 9:30. And of course, we are also gathering on December 24th at Christmas Eve. Also, you can join us for an Advent Day Apart retreat at the Whittle Farm in Elizabethtown on December 4th from 9 to 3. And you can sign up for that today at lutherancamping.org. Or you can also participate in our Advent Christmas night in the barn at the Whittle Farm. It's just a beautiful atmosphere to prepare for Christmas. So you're welcome to come out for that too. That's at 7 o'clock on Sunday, December 19th. So again, happy Advent to you, and we hope that you will join us in hopeful anticipation of the days that are surely coming when the Lord's righteousness and peace will be made known to all people.